Hi, my name is Matt, and I'm going to talk about the Westboro Baptist Church. Just a little background on that is that it's a church that started in Topeka, Kansas. The leader of the church is Shirley Phelps, and some background on her is that she is a licensed lawyer. So the issue is that in 2006, picket preaching and protesting God's Word was a newfound method of religious obligations founded by the Westboro Baptist Church of Topeka, Kansas, or WBC. These public protesting and picket signs voiced messages such as, God hates fags, thank God for dead soldiers, and you're going to hell. The Westboro Baptist Church and other community churches, so they're actually rooting out. So there's churches that are following these methods of public preaching. So these community churches that follow these methods are fighting to keep their ways of preaching to continue. On the other hand, people who are disturbed by this church feel that these people are poisoning the words of a sacred text and feel that they should be silenced. But because of the First Amendment is protecting them, the Westboro Baptist Church still continues their public protesting. They received $1,000 lawsuits, and but that's the least that the opposing side is trying to claim from them. What they're trying to do is limit their wording, not exactly stop their public preaching, because that would stop all public preaching. So they're just trying to limit their wording because it's very cruel and offensive. My first defense to that was, disturbing messages are not right and just. I'll read to you that according to the law, disturbing the peace, also known as a breach of peace, is a criminal offense. That occurs when a person engages in some form of disorderly conduct. When a person's words or conduct jeopardizes others' right to peace and tranquility, he or she may be charged with disturbing the peace. I'm going to state my claim of fact to you is that the First Amendment cannot defend the Westboro Baptist Church. Actions that they have violated this law was disturbing the peace. They have argued with pedestrians, they continue to voice out after silence is requested, and they disturb private gatherings such as funerals. One example of that is that they invaded a funeral of Albert Snyder's son. His son is a soldier who died in war, and the Westboro Baptist Church won this lawsuit because they were not within feet that actually put contact with them. But because Albert Snyder could still hear them and the funeral was disturbed, he tried to settle a lawsuit on them, but unfortunately he lost that lawsuit because the First Amendment protects them. Another defense on that is that the Westboro Baptist Church violates the law of verbal abuse and assault. From that law reads, verbal abuse is the use of words that cause harm to a person being spoken to. It is difficult to define and may take many forms. Similarly, the harm caused is often difficult to measure. The most commonly understood form is name calling. Verbal abuse may consist of shouting, insulting, intimidating, threatening, and so forth. The Westboro Baptist Church violates this law because they use words such as fags, bigots, bimbo, and so forth, defending their claims in areas of public institutions. The Westboro Baptist Church also violates the law of privacy and harassment. I'll read you that law. That law reads, to be unlawful, the conduct must create a work environment that would be intimidating, hostile, or offensive to reasonable people. Invading the funeral left that to violate that law. In conclusion, the Westboro Baptist Church's methods of public preaching need to be silenced. The Westboro Baptist Church preaching pickets and protests should be illegal when people feel harmed both verbally and insightfully.
All right, well, we get a pretty good idea of what the topic is. I don't really get a very clear sense of what the claim is at the beginning of the speech, and I think you need to be more aware of that. At the end of the speech, you're on the brink of making a policy claim. In fact, you do make a policy claim. It's right at the very end that they should be stopped, they should be silenced, there should be, some way to control them. So you've kind of shifted right at the end to a policy point of view. The secondary issues that you develop with each of those definitions of what those terms mean, they need to be phrased a little bit more specifically as claims. So, for instance, you want to say that the Westboro Baptist Church is violating what did you call it? The verbal assault and the verbal abuse and assault laws in the state, or they are violating the disturbing the peace rules, and then show how their actions do that very thing. It seems strange to me that if all of that is true, why is it that they haven't been prosecuted on any of those things? Or if they have been prosecuted and they've won all of those cases, how does that support your position? Because it seems to be that the courts have decided that your position is the incorrect one. In fact, you do cite the one case where Snyder sued, and in essence, they lost. It sounds like they've got the First Amendment on their side, and they've got a right to do what they're doing. As reprehensible as they are as human beings, I think that doesn't change the legal issue here, that they have a right to do this. You're suggesting that there are things that they are violating that we could use as legal techniques to shut them down. But I think that one of the problems that you have is if you use this the way you talked about it, because you said, well, we need to limit the words because they're hurtful or offensive or something like that. You could apply maybe the verbal abuse and assault standard on that, but if you use that for disturbing the peace, unless the fight breaks out, I think you're going to have a hard time proving that. And then, of course, the problem is when a fight breaks out, then everybody's involved in it. It's not just those folks that gets involved in this kind of thing. I just think your proposition needs to be clearer at the beginning. You've got, I don't know if those are definitions that you're giving us of those concepts, like verbal abuse and assault and disturbing the peace, or if they're the local codes of the cities where the protests have taken place. The experiences that, this has been going on for 7 years now, and there are plenty of examples and experiences in law enforcement officers who are addressing these issues, and I think your argument is that our hands are tied and they shouldn't be. There are ways that we could address this, but I don't get enough detail on why it is that these rules that you're talking about aren't being applied the way you think they could be applied. It just seems like it would be intuitively something that people would do, as opposed to some of the strategies that have been used. Like the Hells Angels showing up and roaring their engines back and threatening to beat the crap, which they shouldn't be doing, threatening to beat the crap out of them. I'm just keeping my fingers crossed that God will smite them.